Okay, we'll go ahead and call the November 7th, 2024 meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission to order. Can we have the roll, please?
Commissioner Sibley.
Here.
Commissioner Fenster.
Here.
Commissioner Tarek.
Here.
Chairman Lane.
Here.
Commissioner Jacoby.
Here.
Commissioner Barnhart.
Here.
Council Member Mayor Peck.
Here.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. First order of business is approval of the September meeting minutes, September 5th. Do any of the commissioners have any questions, comments, corrections on those minutes? And if not, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion by Commissioner Barnard. And a second, okay, thank you. It's been 2 months, we forgot how we do this. Motion from Commissioner Barnard and a second by Commissioner Jacoby. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None, therefore the minutes are approved unanimously, thank you. Okay, next on our agenda would be report from the chair. I do not have anything particular to go over tonight, so I will cede my time to the HPC staff liaison.
Thank you so much, Chairman Lane. So I have a few items to report on. First and foremost, we have not received any administrative certificates of appropriateness since our last meeting in September. I have processed an administrative tax credit application, state tax credit application for a roof COA, for a roofing project that we did an administrative COA for. So just getting some of the final documentation to finalize that particular tax credit project. Tower of Compassion, I've been in communication and submitted materials to the state for consideration for the state and national register. So I know we'll be that will be getting reviewed in January. I understand we have a ringer on that committee. So that is something that's been done. Related, the Buddhist temple is apparently under consideration for state register listing. I was made aware of this by members from the museum, Longmont Museum, and have since been in communication with representatives from History Colorado who are working on that, and I'm working to get in coordination with representatives from the temple who I'm hoping to get to a commission meeting to talk a little bit about that at some point soon. So I'm going to try to get that on the December agenda if I can get all of the cats herded. I am definitely going to be encouraging them to seek local designation as well, since they kind of didn't really, I heard about it from other people. So kind of related to that is that I am working to improve coordination between staff at the Longmont Museum and me. They are related to that. They are going to be piloting a new afternoon history series next year, and are definitely interested in having guest experts. In particular, they have an item scheduled for April, or a session scheduled for April 18th called Buildings Lost and Saved. And they have asked if anyone from the commission would be interested in presenting. And they would also be interested in including a discussion about the role of preservation, of historic preservation in Longmont. So if anyone is interested in assisting with that, I would greatly appreciate that, especially folks who've been, working in Longmont on historic preservation for longer than I have. I'm happy to, assist pulling any information together that we have, and assisting with that as well, and talking about the historic preservation role of what we do and everything as well. A couple of other items. At the December meeting, we will have Damian Pachota from History Colorado, who will be here to discuss the 150-250 initiative that's being done. Basically, the goal is to list 150 new sites with particular focus on underrepresented communities on the state register, in conjunction with the 150th anniversary birthday of the state of Colorado and the 250th birthday, the sesquicentennial of the United States. So he'll be here to discuss that. In February, I have Charisse Montgomery, who is one of our city engineers. She will be here to provide an update on work that's going to be done on the Ute Creek silo as well. They're planning to do some stabilization work and getting the estimates and everything. But we thought it'd be a good idea just to bring her in, especially because there are some neighbors who have had special interest in this project over the years. So just to make sure that this commission is aware of what's going on there as well. The only other thing I have on my agenda, on my report for now, is just a heads up to think about the January meeting. So for 2025, it falls on January 2nd. Which is a little close to January 1st. It's a city holiday for January 1st, so we just need to probably think about whether we should try to reschedule it or cancel it altogether. I know the January meeting is where we typically set where we can set the priorities for the year, et cetera, and go over our administrative items. So if we want to look into rescheduling it, I can have Maria check and see what the availability of this room would be. And that is what I have for now. I probably have missed something, but if it comes to mind, let me know.
I will address that January meeting here in a second. The one thing on my mind was just because I got a save the date for the preservation conference.
Oh, yes.
So if you might want to speak, especially since we got at least one new commissioner.
Yes. So we do have, and I meant to send that out as well. I will add that note. So for the new commissioners, for Commissioner Tarek, there is an annual conference put on by Colorado Preservation Inc., aka CPI, called Saving Places. This year it will be in Colorado Springs. There are typically some scholarships available for that, but this department does also, we do budget for commissioners registration fees for that. It is in Colorado Springs this year, which is not quite as convenient as previous years when it was in Boulder and Denver. So, and I know Commissioner Barnard, you were in communication with Jennifer from CPI about potentially doing a session. So we probably need to. You haven't heard back. Okay. So I will. Yeah, and if you want to copy me, that'd be great. And we'll see what we can get pulled together. It seems like it might make sense to do if we're serious about doing a session, it might be interesting to pull, if we could get some additional information on the Buddhist temple and kind of frame it as a larger, role of the Japanese American, community in the history of the state as well. Although I'm sure we could fill a full session on Tower of Compassion as well, but it seems like it could be a good opportunity to do a larger framing of it. Yes, sir.
You're aware also that the Buddhist temple was originally the Burlington
Yes. Yes.
So it has a much longer history than just
Yes.
Buddhist.
Yes. And so I think that's part of the Buddhist temple significance, as well as I think the schoolhouse is somehow incorporated into it. So I'm trying to get a kind of a walkthrough scheduled for it.
Do you have a date for that conference?
It is typically give me 1 second. It is January 29th through February 1st.
Okay.
So it's typically like a Wednesday through Friday. So in this case, that would not conflict with. That would not.
February.
Yeah, it would not conflict with our February. Actually, interestingly, this one actually runs Wednesday, technically through a Saturday. That's interesting. So I'll get that information sent to the commission as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Commissioner Barnard.
I have it on Friday and Saturday.
You have it on Friday and Saturday.
Yeah, the 31st and the 1st, but
Yeah, their website says the 29th through the 1st.
okay.
Yeah, that's what I have as well. Yeah.
Did you get I think I sent you the email that I sent to Jennifer Charles Arrigo that had all of the attachments with the, I'm pretty sure I sent it to you.
Okay, I'll double-
I'll double check.
Yeah,
that.
I'll double check as well.
And that's what I would forward, I would follow up with her, and so you would get a copy of it. One other thing, Chair.
Yeah.
Usually in January, we also set the date for the retreat,
Correct.
and we learned to do that earlier, setting the date earlier rather than later, so we have lots of choices of dates and location.
Yes.
So, if we're not going to meet, then we need to talk about, we can make that decision in December. We don't have to wait till January.
Yeah,
decide
well,
that.
I'd like to take a poll of commissioners if who's interested in potentially shifting the meeting to the 9th, or I would rather hold the meeting and keep progress moving.
Would it make sense to have Maria check on availability for this particular space, and
Yeah.
we can get that to the full commission and
can't do
and we
the
can make that
Can't do
determination at the December meeting.
Okay, yeah. Why don't we go ahead and do that? Just check on the 2nd and the 9th. It looks like Commissioner Barnett can't do the 9th, but check on availability, and then we can do a little poll of the commissioners between now and December to just sort of set that. If it's on the 2nd, it's on the 2nd. I don't necessarily have a problem with it, but okay. All right. Well, the 9th is trending down.
Trending downward. Okay. I'll have Maria will take a look at what dates this space is available, because that is probably the biggest driver of everything. So
Just as a quick poll, does anybody know that they have an issue with the 2nd? One potentially. Yeah, okay. All right. Well, we'll throw out some options, and
Okay.
we'll figure it out by next meeting. But thank you, Commissioner Barnett. The retreat was also going to be something I wanted to
yes.
throw out there to just make sure we're tracking that.
So with regard to the retreat, if was the Callahan House acceptable for folks last year?
That's great.
Okay, I will touch base then with Brittany and see what availability they have for probably late January, probably early
Early
February.
Maybe after the
Yeah,
saving places. Yeah, perfect. And that usually takes place of well, in the past it's taken place of whatever meeting that month has, it's the February meeting or the March meeting, assuming that we don't have anything otherwise on the agenda for COIs or something like that. Any other commissioners have comments or questions for staff? All right, Mayor Peck.
Thank you. As far as the retreat goes, remember last year it coincided with the council retreat.
Yes.
So maybe you and Sandy can coordinate that. Personally, I think you get preference.
We try to have a very interesting and lovely retreat. It's probably a little lower stress than the council retreat. So, I will coordinate with Sandy to make sure it does not conflict.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next we'll go on to public invited to be heard. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak? Okay. Okay, thank you.
I will actually, on that point, I didn't see Melanie sneak in here. This is Melanie Neske. She is one of our newest associate planners with the city of Longmont, and I am bringing her into the historic preservation fold.
Okay.
So, one, so I have backup, but also because, it's probably some of the more fun stuff we do within the planning and development department, and it's just always good to have that cross training and such as well. So
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, welcome. Okay, well, seeing no others in the audience, I will go ahead and close the public invited to be heard. We do not have any agenda items that are public hearing, so we'll move on to new business, which consists of new commissioner nominations. And so Commissioner Jacoby and I had the pleasure of interviewing 3 possible candidates. We had 5 total, one of whom was not eligible because of some technical.
had not been a registered voter in the
Yeah.
city of Longmont for at least a year.
Yeah, and the other unfortunately dropped out of the interview process, so sort of withdrew effectively. But still, I think it was a good 3 good conversations. So And we have some, so just for everyone else's understanding on the commission, we had a set of sort of rote questions that are on every interview. We rank the candidates 1 through 5 on a point system, and then Commissioner Jacoby and I both had kind of a little bit of off-script question for each, and then we tally up the sort of grading, if you will. But again, I think we had all three were good candidates. Yeah. So.
Yep. Yeah, and so the consensus, there was a little difference on which one the two of you rated as number 1 and number 2, but the top 2 candidates were the same. So the top 2 candidates were Mary Frances O'Day and Sue Henderson. So both who met the qualifications, and so I will be preparing the memo if this commission is agreeable to those 2 candidates for the open alternate positions. I will prepare the memo and forward that to the clerk's office.
Okay, so I'll go ahead
So
and.
I'll just need a motion on that.
Right, yeah, I'll just go ahead and make that if that's acceptable. I'll move that the Preservation Commission recommends to council the appointment of Ms. O'Day and Ms. Henderson to the alternate commission members. So moved by Chairman Lane and seconded by Commissioner Jacoby. All those in favor, or actually, let's see, is there any discussion? Anybody questions? Sorry, I sort of ramrodded that. Didn't mean to. All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? None? Okay, motion carries. And if you would convey to our first candidate, Kalkofer,
Emily Kalkofer.
that we did very much appreciated the conversation, and it in no way reflects any, just there were other candidates.
It was a very tight spread.
Yes, and we'd be welcome. I mean, this, as we have seen, this was a lot of candidates this time, but there have been times when we've had few. So
Yes.
If she was interested in either joining another board in town, great, or come back again when we're back in need of additional members.
Perfect.
Thank you. Okay, now on to prior business, our historic survey plan.
Yes. So
Very
the
exciting.
survey plan has been formatted and was forwarded as part of the package. I have the version that was in the package on the screen. I will note that I have made some red lines that I've already forwarded to the consultant Josh Olhava at AIRS. There was a little bit of it took them a little longer, largely because the portion of their team who was doing the actual document production is based out of the Tampa office, and they didn't have power for much of the month of October, and part of September. So yeah, one of many reasons I'm glad to not live in Florida anymore. So there were some very real technical difficulties there. I have made some style edits and such. There was a weird typo on the cover that's been taken care of. I was like, that's a problem. Yeah, preservation. So that has been taken care of, as well as there were a couple things on the acknowledgments, but it was mostly related to credentials and such. So otherwise, the way it's organized is discussing existing assessments and various areas of interest in terms of, and then there is a strategic action plan matrix on that. A number of the areas of interest really spanned the gamut as far as eras. So we have, a continuation of our older neighborhoods. So looking at, say, Bond Farm, possibly looking at Kitely and Cannery and Kensington and such. Actually, it doesn't have Kensington listed. But looking at some of the older kind of adjacent to the core neighborhoods, but also looking a little farther out to some of the mid-century neighborhoods that had some particular interest, in particular the Lou Miller area, which is notable for every every parcel being slightly angled, which is very interesting. It's very interesting. At first I thought it was just the houses, but then when I was looking at the parcel maps, I'm like, wow, it's really actually the parcels that are angled. So, so that's something I don't think I've ever seen that anywhere. So it's pretty interesting, as well as some action matrices. In terms of the corrections, I've sent them. There were some nomenclature about the Arapaho. I suggested they might want to rephrase the pre-1860s as the Arapaho Nation. And there were just some organization things as well. So in terms of the timeline, overall, I was happy with how it's organized, but just including some, there were just some comments I made relating to previous zoning and how the current zoning of, for example, the historic east side is and such as well. So with that, I have the plan up on the screen. If folks want to discuss it, I'm happy to go to the appropriate pages. And if folks have specific edits they just want to email to me and I can incorporate into a master, that will work as well. So with that, I have zero preference and will defer to the commission.
Okay. Let's see, just for the sake of keeping this somewhat focused, let's just go section by section.
Sure.
And if any commissioners have any comments or questions about each section as we go, we can just kind of run through it. I think that'll keep us. Yeah. Okay, go ahead and
Question.
tag your Commissioner Fenster.
Yes. To whom, to what audience is this document directed?
I would say it's a pretty broad audience. It would be members of the public, anyone with an interest in historic preservation. It's also a baseline document for seeking grant funding to initiate additional survey work. So it's a multifaceted the audience of the commission, members of the community, and ultimately potential grant funders.
And do we have a marketing plan for it? Are we, the commission, going to try to publicize it and get a wider distribution, et cetera?
I feel like this is really more of a framework document to help guide further policy and planning efforts. This was less of a, didn't really have much. It didn't necessarily have a public involvement component, but subsequent follow-up efforts would have that public component. So it's hard to say, whether or not it's something that we need to market or if it's something that really is helping to guide future efforts internally. I think it's kind of a hybrid internal-external document.
I want to suggest that we give some consideration to proactively marketing the document, which is by way of saying broadening the public interest in historic preservation and using this document as a means to enlarge interest in the subject. We sit here kind of cloistered, and there is, and this is an intellectual community, and might very well be interested in having such a document and walking the streets and using it, et cetera. So I want to suggest against cloistering the whole effort, and the opposite, which is marketing the effort.
I'll certainly be sharing this with the Longmont Museum as well as the Historical Society.
It's still a small audience.
It's a small audience, but they have a broader reach as well.
Yeah, but why shouldn't we put the document in a position where people will want it and walk the streets with it and make use of it?
It would certainly be posted on the city's website as well. And I can definitely work with our communications team to share it via our social media and other networks,
Yeah.
other realms as well.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of, is even if it's just, if it's clearly, once it's completed, it's posted on the website, and then if there's even just a, I guess Longmont leader went away and came back, but, some little press release in the Times Call, the
Sure.
Longmont leader, just
I'll-
letting it be out there.
I'll certainly work with our comms team in terms of, once it's finalized to push it out.
Thank you for the comment. Let's see. Commissioner Barnard?
Yeah, it's just in response to Commissioner Fenster, there is an active outreach considered in this plan that, so I think we'll get to that as we go further on, and you may want to take your comments and refer them to the specific outreach that goes on in that. I don't know if you want to start going through sections or what.
Yeah, I'd like to take the first section, just the context and history, basically the introductory section, and just ask for any comments from commissioners on that particular section if you have them.
Generally, I think the choice of photographs is kind of threw me a little bit. It says fire department in downtown Longmont on, but that's not the fire department. It used to be the fire department, maybe, I don't even know when, but it's just not, it's misleading. On the, right at, page 26 of the whole packet.
Yes, that would be more appropriately labeled as the Firehouse Arts Center.
Yes.
Yeah. And it took me a second, even though I live here, to figure out where Longmont was on the map. But then I finally saw the little star. But maybe that star could be a little bigger, just because we want to point out where Longmont is.
Good call.
I think it's a building in downtown Longmont, and it's just, I mean, this is just an example of pictures that were chosen and how they were chosen. I like the key historical milestones. I thought that was good. Page 29, I think that might be one of the typographical errors that you're talking about, I hope, under development pressures.
So on page 29.
It says the project team identified several key areas where this is occurring near the
Which page did you have
near
that
the
on?
there is no
Which?
Oh, it just ends.
Yeah.
The development pressures paragraph.
Which page are you
chopped
on?
off.
page 29.
29.
Oh, 29.
I missed that. Good guys.
Good catch. Okay.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Last word.
Okay, I think I'm looking at a different number of page. What is the actual page
So
number?
page 6 is the
Okay, that's what I was
under
needing.
development pressures.
Yes, I believe that is something I have also.
I didn't.
Yeah, that's
I didn't. I liked the Hotel Longmont picture, although it's sourced from a magazine, a newspaper that doesn't exist anymore. You might want to get it sourced from something that's sourceable. You know, I mean, the Longmont Leader's out of publication, so
I think they started back up though, didn't they?
Yeah, I think they did.
Really?
They said they were going to.
They said they were going to.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I will.
yeah. I mean,
I-
there's
I'll-
other sources you can use. I'm sure.
We
with the
actually
hotel
probably have
picture.
something in our records from their application
Yeah.
with the city as well.
And
So
I'm not sure what to take from the granary picture. I just don't, it's just a green box.
yeah,
On page 7, there's the talks about the environmental loss, the wildfire risk, the flood risk, But there's no mention of the St. Vrain Greenway as a response to the floods. I've read through the whole thing looking for it a couple times, but I think that the development of the St. Vrain Greenway is a major piece of work that was done in Longmont. And it really, it's more than just flood control. I mean, it's major recreation and a lot of other things, but it just doesn't, it's not in here at all.
Yeah.
And then, I guess, page 9, I just thought the pictures were weak. Elite barbershop, and downtown Longmont sign of J.C. Penney Meat Market. I mean, I would have chosen 3 completely different. I don't know which ones I would have chosen, but they wouldn't have been those 3.
Do you know the Elite Barber Shop is the oldest business in the city of Longmont?
Well,
It's been
okay.
around since the 1800s. But, I mean, that's not explained in this picture.
Yeah, I was going to say the captions definitely need more context. I agree with that statement
Okay, so
completely.
that's section 1, Steve. So
Yeah. Okay.
I'll wait till we get to the next.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, weirdly enough, the picture of downtown Longmont is, it used to be where my office was. No, this is very weird. I got kicked out because she wanted to make her store bigger. Yeah. Let's see. I have a couple comments, but do any other commissioners have any on this section? No. Yeah, I had a couple of comments. Let's see. I'm going to try to find the real page here. It's page 2. The integration with broader city goals. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth paragraph down. The last sentence in that paragraph says includes avoiding the boulderingation of Longmont.
I think it should have been boulderization, but even that's very
even
cringy.
then, it's sort of like, I know we threw this around a little bit in the retreat, and it's sort of a funny thing, but I don't know that it really belongs in a document like this, right? I think there's a more professional way to say that, right? So that's my comment there. And let's see. Oh, on the timeline, there was that little picture of the plaque with JCPenney, but there's no mention in the timeline of the JCPenney store, and that's a big enough thing that's recognizable by enough people that I think that ought to be on the timeline. And there's I didn't find any acknowledgement of the Dickens family on that timeline either.
Yeah.
And where that's such a big,
With the early.
and I'm probably missing something else, but I just feel like that. I realize this doesn't need to be exhaustive, but if we're really going to put it in here, then let's just make sure we have some of the major key points, because it covered some of the early stuff, and if I'm pretty sure it covered the Kanemotos, or at least something about that, the Japanese Americans and POWs. I mean, so it's like, make sure we have some of this context, but let's make sure we get the big items on there. I think that's all I had on that section. Let's see, Commissioner Sibley.
It's just sort of an oddly related thing, but I could not find that JCPenney sign. I tried to show my father about 2 months ago, and I could not find it. And so I don't know if it's actually still in the building. So unless I was looking in the wrong block, but anyways, neither here nor there really, but just out of curiosity if anybody sees it since we're talking about all this.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would sort of echo Commissioner Barnett's comment about the granary image.
Yeah.
I'm also kind of trying to understand a little bit about what they're trying to say here, because, if this is development pressured to a degree, those two, well, certainly the hotel lot, it's not, it's on a parking lot, right?
Yeah.
And so, and I don't necessarily, I don't object. I don't think that's the worst thing that ever happened on that corner. The building maybe could have a little more, detail to it, maybe, but I mean, that's a debatable thing. It's not a horrible thing that's happening. So I also
And the
don't
scale,
want,
the scale is not completely out of context either.
no.
So, and I think maybe what they need to say is an example of X.
Right. Like if this is infill and it's not necessarily bad infill, this is going to happen in a downtown. If we have a little bit more structure about what is, if we're going to eventually talk about a preservation plan that has some recommendations for design guidelines and so on, that's potentially appropriate. But I don't want to necessarily have these two projects be seen in this document as something that's bad.
Right.
Right.
It needs to be framed better.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think I made similar comments about that as well.
Okay. Thank you. Yep. Commissioner Barnert.
Yeah, I guess while you were talking, I noticed another, under the Hotel Longmont, the description of it. It's Third Ave. I think Ave should be.
That was one of my comments to them was to
and
spell it out.
Kimbark,
Right,
ST
right,
with small s.
Yeah, wherever you see those, ignore them because I've
Okay.
already taken them to task for that.
All right.
Really, they should have sort of a semi-public thrashing for misspelling preservation on the cover, though.
They
honestly.
yeah, they got that thrashing. They've gotten some of the stylistic comments as well, as far as consistently and spelling out things and
Right.
such. So
Also don't understand, I mean, I think it's nice to have a picture of the Elks Lodge. I'm not sure that why it's there in placemaking benefits on page 8.
Mm-hmm.
Picture of the Elks Lodge, which is not a very good picture either.
No.
But I don't have any problem. I mean, Elks Lodge is a good place, but what's the message? What's the purpose of putting a picture of the Elks Lodge in this particular community building benefits and placemaking benefits? I don't see the connection. Want to put it someplace else? Fine, but I think the pictures should enhance the text.
yeah,
Whenever
as opposed
possible.
to raising. This is actually almost one where it might be beneficial just to not even have a picture.
Yep. Okay. Commissioner Jacoby.
Just looking at a lot of the pictures, I think they used a lot of city and public buildings just for permission's sake, I thought. But you could put a picture of St. Stephen's Church there because, again, that is community building, a church, and that would fit there quite nicely.
Yeah, it's a good suggestion.
Yep, adding that.
Appropriate. Okay. Let's see. So let's move on to the second section, which is existing assessments. So let's see, Commissioner Barnett.
Page 11, I see a right rectangle on the left side. It says 2021 Historic East Side.
There, on this,
Okay,
you can
didn't-
see there is an application.
It didn't print on, I guess it didn't print on mine. Okay.
Yeah, that exists here. And I also made some highlights about, that the commission has actively pursued funding through the CLG program. And because the Historic East Side, and that was a question for the commission, because those surveys were done prior to my time, I was unclear of, my impression was that these were community driven by HINA. I just,
Many were, I don't think all of them were.
Okay.
City initiated some, but.
Okay. That was what I wanted to clarify as well. Okay,
We use neighborhood improvement grant funds for that.
okay. So those were city grants, correct?
Yes.
And my comment on this section is just that I think there's potentially a sort of inordinate amount of space given to those technical memos at the Dickens. Or, I mean, it's appropriate to reference them, I think, but it sort of makes it into a bigger deal than it is. I mean, there's a lot more information in those historic East Side survey, in the surveys Those two technical memos came out of basically one project's our pushing back on a project. And it's, I think it was a good win, but that just maybe an overmuch importance to. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, they found a lot of cool old bottles.
Yeah.
It's, and Holly's not here to say
To speak up for the
no,
bottles.
like archaeological importance is significant. But at any rate, that's my comment there. Any other commissioners have questions or comments? Let's see, Commissioner Barnard.
I'm going to open it up on my computer, but on page 13, when I printed it, it didn't, nothing showed up.
There's a large picture of the cannery building. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so then that picture and the picture of the East Side District and the picture of the West Side District, forget about downtown historic for a second, but just those three, Longmont looks like a very black and white city. And the whole idea is this is supposed to be attractive. And what you're showing, the East Side Historic District looks very dank. And the West Side District, which is, notorious for its greenery, is just an old A house with a big tree. And,
I think these pictures were pulled from the
well,
cultural surveys and landmark files, so many of those were black and white.
yeah, but there's no, we're not, the purpose of this picture is not to show what the West Side District, for instance, looked like back, then. It's to show what it looks, what is it now?
Do we have color photos on file?
I would have to look.
I can go take pictures. Come on, they don't have to be on file to be used. And then on page 18, Downtown Historic District,
It's very pixelated, but it's also
Well,
a
but-
historic
but it-
picture, so.
but it doesn't, the point is, of this picture, take a look at the right, it's the current district. Take a look at the left, it's a historic
They don't relate.
view of 100 years ago.
They
You
don't
know.
relate.
Why can't we show a vivid downtown historic district picture? That's comparable to the vivid outline on the right. Same thing when you look at the next page, on page 19. Downtown historic, I'm not even sure where that is, but it looks really old.
Anything else, Commissioner? I got a couple people in the queue here, so.
Go ahead.
All right. Commissioner Fenster.
Yeah, some of the questions that have been asked thus far, what is the market for this document? What are we going to use it for?
So this market is really to identify areas that we need to capture. It was to identify where we have existing historic surveys, what the gaps are, and what additional areas of the city that we need to look at pursuing historic surveys on to catalog and document.
It's a
asset.
foundational document
Yeah.
for a future preservation plan.
Yeah.
We can't get to a preservation plan unless we have the data that sets us up as to where
Right.
we are now.
So this is not a document that's going to be picked up and used by people who are going to walk the areas.
No, this is very much a
Okay.
technical document.
Okay, well, that answers my question.
Okay, let's see, Commissioner Jacoby.
Just in reference to what was just said, since we're talking about historical preservation in this document, I have no problem with old pictures, but an isolated picture here when there's not others doesn't quite fit it. Maybe every couple could be historic, and certainly the museum has a lot of pictures, including a much better. They have many better pictures of Main Street than this one.
Okay.
It's kind of blurry, and yeah, they could have a much better picture, I think.
Let's see. I had one comment about the maps in general. I thought they were pretty fun to get into. The way that they represented surveyed properties, I think, was really hard to follow. Like, it took me a while to figure out what's going on there. So something that, because it's just basically one little tiny white dot that gets lost when you're looking at it. So that's my one comment graphically, is if we could find a better way to represent the properties that have been surveyed, because it doesn't, you get a really great sense of time period looking at the map in a broad way, but no real clue what's surveyed and not surveyed. And arguably that's like literally the most important thing that we're doing here. So I think that needs a little bit of improvement. And then I'm assuming that you caught the typo on page 19 at the label of the downtown historic buffer map.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the whole, it's the historic, that was,
But yeah.
The fun fact is that things like in design don't always have spell check.
Yeah.
Which is very frustrating.
Yes. And then, so my other question, especially with regards to really the first section, so I should have brought it up then, but even this one, is, would this document get reviewed by anybody at the museum before we issue it? Is it appropriate to get the director to comment?
I could certainly forward it to them for comment before it's finalized.
My personal opinion is that would not be harmful and potentially be of value. So.
Yeah, I can touch base with Elizabeth over at the museum.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, any other comments on section 2 before we move on? No? Okay. All right, I'll open it up to section 3, areas of interest. Any comments there? Ernie? So I'm curious if you, Jennifer, know just exactly kind of what their strategy, how they ended up where they did.
Sure. So some of it was driven by feedback from the retreat, identifying those areas. Other guidance I know that I gave them would be to look at when the significant subdivisions were subdivided. That was a big driver for a lot of these areas as well. So looking at distinctive architecture or distinctive development patterns, but also looking at where do we have some fairly complete area, where areas still pretty complete, but really looking at when areas were platted and developed as well. Okay. So the city subdivision map was a big draw, was one of the data points that was used.
Okay.
So I didn't print this out. I find this really hard to read. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. All right. Commissioner Sibley.
I don't know if it's just the way that it's reading on the computer screen, but I'm finding the maps and everything really difficult to read. Is it just maybe this particular file and how it's opening? Are you guys having the same issue?
Mm-hmm. I see some of them that are a little grainier than others, and I wonder if the maps can be included as an appendix again, which is pretty standard in these kind of plans where we get bigger scale maps kind of as an appendix, just so that you can refer to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as an 11 by 17.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
See, I think you alluded to this already, but on page 38 when it talks about, let's see, this is one of the Lou Millers, maybe. Trying to, oh, sorry, no, that's the wrong 38. My bad. I'm going back. I'm trying to get to your pages and using the wrong pages. Get to the right page here. Oh, okay. I got myself a little lost in the page 38 is page 15, back and forth. There was a reference to the East Side District, and I think you mentioned this before. So it's page 15, so we're back on section 2, so that's my bad. There was the reference to recent zoning changes, and that's what you were talking about. Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure of that. Yeah.
Correct, yeah.
In the East Side District, because that's
Right.
complicated.
It hasn't allowed for multifamily since
right.
basically
okay.
ever.
All right. Yes. All right. I picked up that, and I meant to ask for
Yeah,
clarification.
that was a big flashing red light to me.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Me too. Okay. I mean, I think that there's a lot of great information in here with all of these districts. I mean, I kind of feel like I want to take this thing and run it around town, again, and just get it in my head as to where everything is. But I mean, overall, with the detail, I was generally happy with what we ended up getting here. So, and it doesn't sound like we have any other comments on these sections. No. Okay. Great. So then that really kind of takes us all the way down to the appendix, which really is, I don't know that it's an appendix.
Yeah,
per
it's
se.
really where the rubber hits the road.
It's the point of the document. But yeah, an action plan. And so if I'm understanding this right, so they've got, each one of these neighborhoods sort of categorized, and then it's really up to us to then, as a commission, to decide kind of where to essentially sort of rank them as to where we think the priority ought to be. And so if to the commissioners, I mean, essentially this dollar amount on the right-hand side is going to correspond to what it costs to get a survey of that particular neighborhood done, right? A cultural resource survey where somebody literally, like a Carl McWilliams, goes in and property by property does an assessment of the time that it was built and whoever might have lived there of significance and architectural significance and so on.
That's a good question, because apparently, has Carl really made good on his threats to retire?
Yeah, I don't.
So we
well,
have to
not so
find-
far that I know, but I'm sure it's not long.
He's been saying for, I think, 10 years, I'm retiring soon. So just want to make sure see if there are other folks that might be.
Yeah, and I've done
reach
some
out to.
research, and I think there are 3 or 4 other firms that do that sort of work up and down the Front Range. So I think there are other folks. But that's basically what we're looking at is taking one of these other neighborhoods and saying, okay, we want to develop essentially what we have for a decent amount of the East Side, and come up with funds that would pay somebody to take a neighborhood and really begin to document. And I don't think there's a real downside to anyone. There shouldn't be any necessarily harm to anybody's property in any way. I mean, this is the information about this particular property. Boom. It's just a piece of paper. But obviously we don't have this money, and we need to go ahead and request grant money from the state in order to hire these consultants. And there's a lot of dollars here. So we're being asked to kind of say, okay, relative to all the information that's been provided, what do we think the priorities are? Is that a fair summary?
Does that mean we need to go through the left side, item by item?
Oh, yeah, Commissioner, would you?
Does that mean we need to go through the left side, item by item?
No, I think what it means is that this was going to be my recommendation, that everyone here take this, because it's obviously a lot of information. Take this and come back next month, having filled out this page, right, or these two pages, page 47 and 48. Come back, maybe a few days before the hearing, and print these out and ship them over to Jennifer.
I was going to say, I would recommend if you put your priority list together and send it to me, and I can compile it and identify where we have consensus.
Right, and again, it's just about where do we think the first grant ought to be focused on, right? Because essentially what we're going to end up doing is we're going to, between staff and some commissioners that have made a volunteer to assist, and I presume we're going to need to, I presume we would need to ask council for permission to do this, but I don't know if it's getting funded. But at any rate, the idea would be to, put in a request to the State Preservation Office to fund, to get grant money to then hire a consultant to go ahead and create one of these surveys. And really have a plan to kind of run through them in some kind of order over time, because if we could get all of that information together, then we would have a really great foundation of information about properties in the city. Okay, I think I've talked enough for a moment. Commissioner Jacoby.
Yes, just looking at this matrix, how did they get the conclusions for surveys recommended yes or no and report priority high, low, medium? I mean, is this just, I'm not sure what to do with that information, and is that misleading? Isn't that what you're saying, Steve, we should be really doing at this point? But why would they not recommend a survey at some instances, and some instances, yes? I don't understand where that information came from.
It looks like they just, well, okay, I don't know about the Longmont Estates, but otherwise it looks like basically West Side, East Side, downtown, which we already have some. I mean, I guess I'm presuming because we already have some. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It is a weird. It's a good question though, right? It's odd.
Right. And even with the west side and east side, there's more homes to be surveyed. So
right.
I wouldn't maybe it's a lower priority perhaps, but again, I don't know where. And the report priority, I'm not sure where that came from. Maybe some of it correlates with redevelopment pressures, I noticed, but it doesn't correlate exactly, so I'm not really sure where that came from either.
Commissioner Fenster.
Yeah, well, that was sort of my question also. Should we be prioritizing? Should we be making a recommendation on priorities for these items?
I mean, I personally think that's our job, right? We take this information and we decide what we're, based on our knowledge and experience and so on.
And what tools should we be using? Should we be relying on the recommendations of others and then putting in our own, or how should we go about it in an orderly way? If we want to take all these items and give them a priority because some may not get funded, what is the protocol for doing that?
I mean, I think that's up to each commissioner to make a decision about what they feel is important, right? I mean, that's why we have all these different, I mean, it's why we have different perspectives on the commission, right? Because I might have a different perspective than you, and so on and so forth. And so we all each make our own recommendations based on our perspectives and experience.
Should we bring them to the next meeting? Or?
That's what I would like. I would like if we
I'll
can
invite Josh.
Yeah, if we can, I mean, I guess I appreciate Commissioner Jacoby's comments about some of the confusion, but in the end, it's about prioritizing
money,
where we want to allocate dollars to what neighborhoods in what order. And so if commissioners can come back prior to next month's meeting and just fill in that third column from the left, in the order that they feel is important and hand that over to Jennifer prior to the meeting, we could have some idea of
Yeah.
where it kind of lands, and then we can discuss it, whether we can argue about whether, one should be 3 or 4 or whatever, but we can at least have some information, and we'll all have had some time to digest.
Okay.
Let's see, Commissioner Sibley.
Yeah, just a quick question. The date ranges on page 48, is that when these were put on the National Register? It's 1987
Yes.
and 2017. Okay, so it's not
I think in terms of the National Register districts, those are when the listings occurred.
perfect. Okay, cool.
And that's probably something that needs to be made a little more clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then on page 47, there's a 3/4 1905 for Old North. And I wasn't quite sure what that meant either, but
I'm not sure what that means either.
Okay.
So I will, I did
kind of
not
random.
catch that.
Right? Okay,
So
thank you.
that was something I will.
All right, perfect.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Barnard.
Yeah, can I conclude that the reason the sugar mill isn't on here at all is because it's not in the city limits?
Correct. And there are also some pretty extensive planning efforts already associated with that area. So, it's not fully incorporated into the city, but there's also a larger sub-area plan that's been completed for that sugar factory area. So, I don't want to say it's being taken care of, but we have that. There are substantial planning efforts that have been undertaken for that project, for that property area.
Other commissioner questions or comments? All right. I think are we clear on marching orders? Everybody's got homework. We'll have to.
So just to recap, I'm going to take the notes and edits that I have received from everyone here this evening and consolidate them into a red line document to send over to our consultants so they can go ahead and get moving on some of those things. In the meantime, commissioners are going to go through the action matrix and put their rankings in and send those to me ahead of the next meeting. So send them ahead to the meeting so that I can get those consolidated so we can have this is where everything landed. Is everyone cool with that?
Yep. And with regard to Commissioner Norton, would you like to reach out to her about that, or should I, about what we're?
I can reach out to her.
Just so that she knows and isn't blindsided by this. Okay. Well, it's exciting to see. The tendency with these things is to sort of start nitpicking them and get into them, and I don't want to make it seem like this is not an exciting piece, and there's not obviously a lot of work that has been done that's very much appreciative, and I think this is a great step in really moving forward. So something we've been talking about for a long time, and it's always kind of nice. I think it's important to celebrate those moments when you actually see some progress happen when you've talked about it for years.
Yes, we have tangible products.
So thank you for working with heirs to make this happen. Okay, great. Well, that was fun. Let's see. Then now we're basically through the meat of the meeting here. Any other comments from commissioners? No? Any comments from Mayor Peck, our city council rep?
I just wanted to say thank you for this survey. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I had no idea about all of the areas, like the cannery area. I had no idea it was so large. I just thought it was just that one building. So it's very educational. So thanks.
Thank you.
All right, great. Well, that was a productive meeting. I would now entertain a motion to adjourn. Yeah. Okay. Moved by Commissioner Sibley, seconded by Commissioner Jacoby. All those in favor of adjournment? Aye. And thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.